Hello and welcome to the Purpose Matrix. I want to start with a story that has probably happened to all of us. I heard this story when we were in a book discussion back in my corporate days, and it's happened to me and it's probably happened to you. We're sitting there, we're eating breakfast, with the family, and instantly our little kid, son, daughter, 4 or 5 years old, spills milk everywhere. Disaster, right? All over the floor. It's a mess. And I want to frame up this story with how our mindset works and how we react and what drives it all, which is what we see. So we can do one of two things. We can see a mess, a disaster, and that drives how we think, our son or daughter is so careless. We feel angry and we maybe act out by yelling at them. What are you thinking? Be more careful. We lose a little bit on them, right? But because how we see that frames the situation. The other one is we see it with, it's our 4-year-old, accidents happen. You know what? They didn't try it. They're a little kid. Yeah, maybe they were being a little careless because they're 4, right? So we might feel empathetic and we act a little bit differently. And we get clear, by the way, on what we want to do with that situation. It's a teaching moment versus, a teaching moment. It's going to be a teaching moment anyway. We're going to teach with, hey, it's okay, empathy, but teach a lesson, or we're going to teach them that we can react and overreact and react with anger or whatever, frustration. So the key to that, though, is there's a cycle that's running our entire lives. It's our mindset cycle. And the key to that is how we see things in the moment, and how we see things from a broader perspective, I'll say from a macro perspective, frames everything and changes everything, and it can change our whole life and how we live our whole life. I'm going to talk today about a book from over 100 years ago that talks about mindset a lot. I want to talk about how our brain actually works, the actual science behind our brain works, and why this is so important. And I'm going to talk about a couple of simple equations that I've developed through just all the reading and stuff I've done as I've thought about this more. And there's some of these that I want to be living, and some of these that I don't want to be living, and I'm living in all three all the time, right? So I'm still trying to figure this out. So the mindset cycle is this is how the brain works. The mindset cycle is so what we see drives how we think about things, which drives our emotions and how we feel, which will drive how we act. So in the case of spilled milk, you could also, I've used this example before, like a road rage incident where, what we see. So in the road rage example, what we see is we see some jerk cutting us off that is just worried and consumed about themselves. So we think that, we get mad, and maybe we flip them off or, gun it or do something stupid, right? But if we see, hey, I wonder what's going on there. I wonder what's wrong. I wonder why they're in such a rush. It frames our thinking. So it changes our emotions, and we act in a more controlled fashion, right? The point being, how we see things in the moment. These are micro examples, but how we see things in the moment, or macro examples, our broader perspective of how things work frames our whole life, frames everything. The key is you can control this too. And it's not easy, but you can control it. So James Allen, in his book, he wrote this in the early 1900s called As a Man Thinketh. It's right here. Absolutely phenomenal book if you're watching on YouTube or watching on any of the platforms, quite frankly. So James Allen talks about the characters that complete some of all of our thoughts, right? So I had a couple of micro examples prior, and you could think of some in your own life too, but there's some micro, like in the moment examples. But really the way I want you to think about this as well is the macro, building our mindset over time. How do we see things over time? How do we shift that? Because we can build our mindset, right? Your mindset today, whatever your mindset is the cumulative exposure to everything that you've seen, everything that you've read, everything that you've watched, every social media platform that you've been on, every TV show, every person you've hung around. Like, your mindset has been built by your experiences, your exposure, whether that's been intentional or unintentional. Tim Kite, a mentor of mine, had a great quote. Tell me what you pay attention to, and I'll tell you who you are. right? But a lot of us, I've talked about this in the past, we have education by default. So it's social media that's training our mindset. It's our friends. It's our, the news feed. I mean, think about it, like CNN, constant negative news, whatever you're paying attention to, it is building your mindset. And we have to be intentional about it. And we can build it, but we can go on offense here, right? So James Allen, in his quote, as the physically weak man can make himself strong by careful and patient training, so the man of weak thoughts can make them strong by exercising himself in the right thinking. So just like we can physically train ourselves, we can mentally train ourselves as well. One thing that really shifted my mindset around building mindset was, what I would encourage you to do is try to build your mindset around something that you're really interested in right now. So if you're interested in finance, if you're interested in leadership, if you're interested in parenting, if you're interested in coaching youth sports or coaching kids or, whatever sport that might, if you're interested in something, take an approach to that of educating yourself on purpose. There's all kinds of great videos out there on training. There's all kinds of great books on any topic, especially leadership, faith, family, you name it. There's phenomenal books. And what shifted my mindset over to macro about education was when I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad for the first time. I was probably 22 years old. And I was interested, because I was dead broke at the time, I was interested in financial education. How could I do more here? And I picked up that book, and it completely changed my mindset around money, finances. And the big aha was not only my misunderstanding of money and finance. The big aha was one little book for $15, $18, whatever it was, read over a couple of hours, can completely change my mindset. That was the aha, not what I learned, but oh my gosh, there's so much power in this little book that someone put so much time into and grew my mindset. I need to do more of this. So as I got interested in different topics over time, business, finance evolved to leadership, impact. And then as I grew up or whatever, and it took me a while, trust me, but then maybe family, parenting, relationships, health, faith, right? And now I'm more interested or read more about those topics than maybe I do about business and finance, right? But my point is, find something you're really interested in and build your mindset over that. And then as your interests evolve, you'll recognize that you can grow your mindset on whatever topic you're most interested in at this time. The other element of building mindset and what we see in the process is see, think, feel, act is really how the brain works. But the other thing is, I'll call it the RAS for short, but the reticular activating system is your brain's filter for how you see the world, right? You're taking millions of inputs a second and filtering them, right? And the RAS, it decides what gets through and what doesn't, right? But you start to see what you're looking for. A simple example is when I was looking years ago at we're going to buy a Honda Pilot, right? And all of a sudden on the road, I started recognizing and seeing Honda Pilots, right? I never really paid attention before, but every Honda, all of a sudden I saw Honda Pilots all the time. Am I just seeing, all of a sudden more people started driving Honda Pilots? No, of course not. I had an interest in that and I just started seeing them more. And the message there is, when we're trying to build our mindset, get clear on what you want to see and what you want to learn, because clarity of purpose guides what you see, and it will grow your mindset in the direction of your purpose, in the direction of your vision, in the direction of your dreams, right? You're automatically filtering, but get clarity first on what you want to see, who you want to be. I'll talk more about that. And then as James Allen, the same quote said, if you dream lofty dreams, and as you dream, so shall you become. Your vision is the promise of what you shall one day be. So if you really think about who you're becoming, who you want to be, you will just naturally start to be that, because you'll start to pay attention and your brain will start to filter out the things you don't want to pay attention to and filter in, if you will, the things that will bring you towards your purpose. So, the See, Think, Feel, Act, I originally learned from Focus 3 from Tim Kite. You've heard me referenced him before, absolute phenomenal leader and leadership coach. And then James Allen, the book I've referenced. But through that process, I've kind of come up with 3 different equations that we probably all live by at different moments. I live in all of these, fortunately and unfortunately. I'll start with the unfortunate ones. There's 3 equations that we need to think about when we think about how we see things, how we see situations, how we see people. And the first one is the victim equation, which is simply what happens to you equals the results you get or who you are. The victim would say, well, this happened to me, so this is who I am. So for example, my son comes home with a bad test score. The victim says, this happened to me. My teacher gave me this bad test score. It's my teacher's fault, right? So that's the result is based on what happened to me. And I have no control of the situation. Also in this case, victim, we're giving away all control to somebody else. And the problem with that is if that's our mindset that we're a victim, we truly have no control over our own life. If that's our mindset, we truly have no even influence. If we're just our results are our circumstances, and that's how we think, we are sorely missing it. Now, I fall in this trap all the time, yes, but I try to get myself out of this equation, right? So Tim Kite said, I am not my circumstances, and I'll talk more about what he continues to say in a little bit, but the victim mindset, the victim equation, we can fall into this trap so often. I just encourage you, we have to insert what we can control. We have to take ownership of what we can do, which brings us to the other equations. So the victim equation was first. The second one is what I'll call the world's equation, which is, and this one is very real, very accurate. And you do live by this. This is a very real equation as well. Situations and people, so your situations plus how you live equals what you get, right? And the key is how you live. And the how you live is what we need to be intentional about, right? We can't control situations and people. We can't completely control what we get, but we can always control how we live. And this is where we insert what we see, how we build our mindset really drives how we live. So start to see things that you can control and can't control. Start to see them for what they really are. Start to be intentional about what you want, right? So in this equation, what you get, we should clarify, and that can drive how we live and what we do. We should look at a situation, see it clearly. That's step 1. Step 2, what do we want out of the situation? Get clear on that. Step 3, that should drive how we act. But when we see situations clearly, we are much more likely to get the outcome we want. Even though we don't completely control the outcome, we're much more, there's much better chance that we get that outcome. But most importantly, we're living in the right way, which really leads us to the next equation. I call it the purpose equation, which is simple. How you live is who you are. That's it. It doesn't even talk about situations and people. It doesn't even talk about worldly outcomes. It's just simply how you live is who you are. And in this equation, the first step isn't how you live. The first step is get clear on who you want to be, on who you are, or who, right? So that's step 1 is get clear on that and let that guide how you live. If there's a situations, I'm positive all the time. That's not how I always live. It's how I want to live. I didn't do that this morning, right? But my goal is, who do I want to be? That's how I live. Independent of my situations and people, get clear on who I want to be, core values, things like that, and let that guide how I live. I try to live in this equation, but I fail all the time. But you know what we see opportunities. We see opportunities no matter what. We see an abundance mindset. We see if we fail, we'll have growth. We'll see lessons. We'll see, hey, we might fail at this, but we'll build new relationships from this. That's what we want. So that's how we're going to live, is we're going to put ourselves out there. And the key is, again, this allows us to be completely free and independent of our situations. Again, this is really hard, but this is the goal. And this brings us to this other James Allen quote, which says, good thoughts and actions can never produce bad results. bad thoughts and bad actions can never produce good results. And that's a much deeper quote than just it feels like at first. Because if we apply this to, I can do the wrong thing and I can get a bad worldly outcome, or I can make a bad decision and lose a lot of money. I can make a good decision and lose money. I can make a good decision and hurt a relationship. But the goal isn't the worldly outcome. The goal is, if I make a good decision, I will be at peace and I will be content with that decision. And that is the inner result is the good result that we're talking about here. Is no good decision can lead to a bad internal result. Similarly, I can make bad decisions, steal, cheat, whatever. Like, I can make bad decisions. Maybe I can get a good external result, but I'll have a bad internal result, right? My self-confidence, my self-respect, all those things. A bad choice cannot lead to ultimately a good outcome. It's going to be a bad outcome. So I love that quote from James Allen. Most of us live a lot in the victim mindset. We might have even learned this. Society is teaching us this all the time. Some of us understand the world equation. I think this equation, if we want things, right, it's fine to live by this, because even the worldly equation, at least you're focusing on how you live. And if you're focused on that, you've made progress over most people. Few people reach the purpose equation, which is truly just content with how I live is who I am, and this is what I'm going to do, independent of the situations, people, or outcomes I get. And to finish the Tim Kite quote that I referenced earlier, I am not my circumstances, I am my choices, right? If I was my circumstances, that's the victim equation, but that's not true. I am not my circumstances, I am my choices, and that's it, simply said. So the difference is, how do we build our mindset around this over the course of time, right? Over the years, are we building our mindset to see the world differently, to see ourselves differently, to focus on making the right decision because we know we'll get the right outcome, to build our mindset like we can build our physical health, we can build our mindset, we can build our mental health, right? A great story example of this I've referenced before is Nelson Mandela, who was in prison for 27 years. How easy would it be for him to have a victim mindset versus a ownership mindset, a purpose mindset? This is the outcome I want. And he said, if I didn't leave bitterness behind, I'd still be in prison, right? So he was able to move on. What an incredible, incredible story of a very strong, purposeful abundance mindset. So what can you do about this? Take control of who you are, right? First, start to audit what you see. Understand in the micro, in the circumstance you're in right now, what you see impacts how you think, how you feel, and how you act. So start to audit that. That's the micro. Over the long term, get rid of the toxic, the bad, the negative that you're letting into your mind constantly. Try to filter that out, or try to get rid of some of that. Just start to get rid of that social media platform, or that news platform, or that TV show, or whatever it might be, that negative person. Start to really get rid of the toxic things that are consuming and really building your mind maybe in not the right way. So once we've eliminated them, let's get some free time. What are you interested in? What book can you read? What podcast can you listen to around a topic that you're really interested in? And start to try that and start to build your mindset around that. That's the third thing. The fourth thing is put this in practice. How can we put this in practice? How can we, watch a situation, a spilled milk, road rage, all the things that are invited us to overreact? How can we take those, and how can we, in the moment, see the situation for what it is, get clear on the outcome we want, and then act? That's what we need to do. And finally, and I need this a lot, is be patient. Be patient with yourself. You are going to overreact. You're going to maybe yell about the spilled milk. You're going to have the road rage. Learn from it. Be patient with yourself. Keep building your mindset. This does not happen over time. But just pay attention to what you pay attention to, as I've referenced before, and And again, you can, like, this can be life changing. If you really think about, okay, my goal is, who do I want to be? That's going to guide how I live. By the way, if you want to build this out, use the purpose matrix as a framework to build out, okay, what is my purpose for every area of life? How do I build my mindset around education and association? And then I have to have the courage to take action, right? And then hopefully I can be an example to others. Purpose, education, association, courage, and example. And James Allen talks about in his book at the very end, but he says, really, good thoughts, good actions can only produce good things. And really it can create peace. Inner peace is what we're looking for here, even though we might not get all the external results that we want. So I think what are you living by? Understand the cycle, see, think, feel, act, start to build your mindset over time, and understand the equations and when you're in the different ones. Are you in a victim equation? Are you living the world's equation, which is a good step? Or are you really living on purpose by getting clear on who you want to be, and that guides how you live? And we're all working towards that. Again, I fail all the time, but which one are you living by? How often are you living by the different ones? How can you start to step out of the one mindset and into the other mindsets? Because your mindset is a choice, and you need to build it wisely, intentionally, and on purpose. I'm Phil Moeller for the Purpose Matrix, signing off.